Today on Stamp TV, I want to help you get a jump start on projects that you can use as gifts for family, friends, neighbors, and teachers. One gift that I make for lots of people every year is a box of all-occasion greeting cards. Considering how many cards we make throughout the year, we probably have a decent stash to get started. But what's the best way to package them? A couple of seasons ago, I showed you these fun little photo boxes that I created using the scor-pal and the Organize It stamp set. These photo boxes are perfect for storing photos by theme, and this free journaling card template on our freebies page at Stamp TV helps you organize your memories until you have time to put them in a scrapbook. I also showed you how this box can double as a gift box for giving sets of greeting cards and envelopes as a gift. But one thing I wanted to change in my new design was the thickness of the box. I wanted my new box to be a little bit thicker and to be able to hold more cards and envelopes. And rather than having this flap on the front, I wanted it to have a flap on the end. So let me show you how to create this new box design using the scor-pal. Using the large scor-pal, I have a piece of cardstock here that measures 11 inches by 8 1/4 inches. So you're only going to need one piece of cardstock to create this box. Now, you're going to need to score on certain lines here. The first line you want to score on is the 4.5 inch line. So we're going to do a nice deep score line down at 4.5 inches. And then you want to score on 5 1/4 inches. You want to do one at 9 3/4 inches. And then your last one is going to be at 10.5 inches. Now, once you've created those lines, you're going to turn the cardstock a 1/4 turn. And your first score line is going to be at 3/4 of an inch. And sometimes I go down a second time just to make sure that the line is deep enough. The next one is going to be at 6 3/4 inches. Give it one more pass there. And the final one is at 7.5 inches. There we go. Now, we're going to trim off some of these parts of this box before we fold it. And here I have a large pair of Fiskars scissors. You can use any scissors you want. The Tim Holtz scissors work great. Also, the Cutter Bee scissors work really well. I'm going to use them for a little bit of the fine detail work. But the first cut that I want to make is on this second from the end line right here. So I'm going to cut that off first. And I like using a real big pair of scissors for this because it gives a nice smooth line right up to that first score line there. You see that? Okay. Then I'm going to trim that piece completely off. Then I'm going to cut this little box off here. And if you have any leftover spots there that you can still see the score line, you can go back and just clean that up a little bit if you have to, like that. Now I'm going to cut this little box off of here. And I'm going to clean that up a little bit. And then I want to make this piece a flap, so I'm going to cut straight down to the score line. So that's going to be a little flap there. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So for this side, I'm going to cut this complete section off here. And I'm going to make a flap. right there. And then I want to cut this box off completely. So your piece should look like that. And both of these flaps should be loose right there, like that. Okay, so now for the other side, you're not really going to cut anything off, but you are going to create flaps. Although I am going to cut this one little piece off right here. So let's just cut that box off, because we won't be needing that. Okay, so now I'm going to cut on this line here, right to the score line, and make a flap. And I'm going to cut here and here up to the score lines to make flaps. And now this box is ready to be assembled. But before I do that, I want to create some pattern paper on it. And it's a lot easier to upholster this box while it's laying flat. So I've cut a few pieces from the Sun-Kissed Autumn patterned paper pack to upholster on top. All of the measurements and all of the score lines will be available at Stamp TV right underneath the video. So you can go to stamptv.com and find the video, and all of the score lines and all of the measurements for all of these pieces will be there for you. Okay, so just using some regular tape, I'm going to upholster these two panels. And I want to make sure I have even spacing around the border. Like that. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one here. But I also cut some thin strips, one for the top of the box, one for this side of the box, one for this side of the box, and one for the bottom, so that when this box is all assembled, everything is going to match. And I would suggest that you get your first panel down and then you work outwards to make sure that they're lined up the same way. It's a lot easier to figure out how to line this piece up when you've got something right next to it that's lined up with this one. So we're going to apply that there. There we go. And then we can put this one on. These are so quick and easy to make. And once you make one, the first one is always the scariest because you're really concentrating on scoring on the right lines and not cutting on the wrong lines. But once you've made one, you may want to actually keep it open and then make all of your other ones. It's a lot easier to see where it's all supposed to be cut when it's laying out flat in front of you. And then you can whip these out in no time. So there's my other side panel, and now the bottom. And the top. Now to make this box, once it's folded, easier to get open and shut, because if you're making all occasion greeting cards, the person's going to go in and out of this box a few times. It's a good idea to round these two corners right here. And I have this little yellow EK Success corner rounder. The best way to do that is to fold and get everything out of the way so that that corner is free, and then round the corner. Same thing here, just make sure that you kind of fold things away and then round this corner. And that's going to allow this little lid to be opened and closed lots of times. Okay, so now fold on all of the score lines. And this is the fun part where you get to put it all together. Okay. Now, because you've already upholstered the box, it's easy to figure out what parts go underneath and what parts go on top. Just make sure these little flaps here are underneath, and then bring this main piece over. Slip that down, and then this is going to go fold down like that. And I would suggest that you use a very, very high quality tape like score tape to do this. So you're going to need some on this flap here on the side. So I have the 1/2 inch score tape here. You can use the 1/4 inch or the 1/8 inch, doesn't matter, just as long as it's not bigger than the actual area. So I can do this side first, actually. Let me just peel that up a bit because I did go over a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to seal this together first. Make sure that it's perfectly even. And squash that down there. So now I have a box, and that's going to be a little bit easier to see how to fold the rest. So you can put a piece of score tape along here. And fold this down like that. And then the top, you won't be needing any score tape because this is the way the box is going to open and shut every time the person wants to grab another card out of there. And if for any reason you're having a little bit of trouble getting it closed, it may be that there's still a little bit of that score line left there, and you can just trim that down, and that'll make it easier for this to get inside. There we go. And you can see now that box is all upholstered on all 4 ends, and the front and the back. Now let me show you the way I decorated my box. Here's the one that I made earlier. What I did here was, you saw how I assembled the box and upholstered it. I cut, using my cameo, my silhouette cameo, a few borders. And this particular border I wrapped around on this side and wrapped it around on this side, and then trimmed it on either side. And then I cut one more and just put it along the back. So even though it doesn't completely go around the entire thing, it still has that feel that it does. And then I had one more border, a different one, that was in that same cut file that I purchased at the Silhouette store. And I just made that one a little bit shorter and just lined it up with the pattern paper just to give it kind of the look of a wrapped gift. I used the Organize It stamp set, and I stamped the oval, and then I stamped it again on the matching pattern paper and cut out these 2 little areas, and I did some paper piecing for that. And cards is one of the greetings that's in the Organize It the Organize It stamp set. So I was able to choose that, since I'm going to fill this up with a box with cards and envelopes, and I stamped that right in the center there. These pieces were cut out using Spellbinder's dies. I used the large classic ovals, the small classic ovals, and I used the large scalloped ovals. And that allowed me to cut out all of those pieces, and I applied that complete panel with 1/4 inch pop dots, which gives it a little bit of dimension. You can see here it's raised up just a little bit off of the box and gives it a little bit of dimension. What I love about this is, even though this is going to be a holiday gift, you don't have to use holiday paper to make it beautiful. You want it to match more of their home decor, give it some warm tones, and then if you're very ambitious, you can use the same pattern papers from whatever pack you're using to design your box, and you can make matching cards for inside. Make all occasion ones: birthday, thank you, sympathy, get well, and put them all together with a few envelopes and this makes such a nice gift. There are many other fun uses for this new box design. Turn it into a small first aid kit, fill it with playing cards and dice, or use it to store coupons, receipts, and gift cards for your next shopping trip. With all of the beautiful pattern papers and colored cardstock options, you can create the perfect gift for everyone on your list.